All right, so today I wanted to talk a little bit more about Bitcoin and specifically um, governments banning them. And this is one of the biggest concerns when it comes to Bitcoin, I would say, but I'm going to get into the fact that I don't think it really is a concern. And this is from Documenting Bitcoin saying Nigerians traded 15% more Bitcoin last month peer to peer after the government banned exchanges. So the point here is very simple that um, number one, I don't think the government is going to ban Bitcoin, especially in the States. Canada, I could see. I think that the difference is, I think that what the government would do is regulate it more rather than banning it because, again, like I would look, I wouldn't put it past some of these governments, especially the more far left ones. But the point being is very simple in that prohibition doesn't prevent people like you look at the drug war, you look at the war on poverty, you look at um, prohibition of alcohol, prohibition of high school kids having alcohol. Like, does it stop any of that stuff? Like, not at all. Like, it doesn't even make a dent. So um, I don't think the government's going to ban it. I think that if they do anything, they'll regulate it. But again, and this is for I think for several reasons. Number one, the most obvious one is that even if they did try and ban it, wouldn't have much of an effect. And number two, if the government banned it, well, there's nothing stopping someone from. There is technically like tax laws and stuff you could be violating, but I mean, if you played your cards right, you should be able to find out a way around it. To where you could just walk across a border, you could fly into a new country, Bitcoin either memorized in your head, encrypted on your phone or computer somehow, and you're good to go, right? Like the good example of this is that you look at the big exodus out of California right now, the state with some of the most taxes, most regulations. And why is that? Is because people don't want to pay the massive taxes, massive regulations, right? So that is the big thing too. Like I say, that the whole point is very simple: is that if the government tries to overplay their hand on this one, they'll end up with less. And this is just basic economics 101 too. It's the Laffer curve stuff, in that um, just because you increase taxes doesn't necessarily mean you increase revenue. There is a equilibrium point to where there is a certain point to where no matter how much more you raise taxes, you won't increase revenue because people will become less productive. People will find ways around the taxes. They'll move out. They'll do whatever they can. And it's the same thing with Bitcoin, is that if the government tries to regulate or tax it too much, and you have massive amounts of people with millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions worth of Bitcoin, they'll probably just leave, or they'll just turn to black market ways of using it. So and this is something I actually kind of hope happens, to be quite honest. I hope some of these countries do this kind of stuff as an example to Canada, the US, and some of these more major countries that, hey, look at all these countries that tried this stuff, it didn't work. Right? Like the capital gains are already taxed. I mean, theoretically, right? That unless you want to try and find ways around that, which again, I'm not saying you should do, but again, the capital gains are already taxed, right? So that's something that this is one of the best arguments, and I think one of the few legitimate ones you hear as to be skeptical of Bitcoin. Like when you talk to people that are skeptical of Bitcoin, usually they have no idea what they're talking about, and that they're just spouting the same old garbage that makes no sense. Like, oh, the Bitcoins, it uses too much electricity, right? Well, again, like, are you saying that you wouldn't trade the um, probably into the tens of millions of lives? I mean, just take, like I say, just take the Iraq War for example. The Iraq War wouldn't have been possible without the fiat money system. If the government had a system to where they couldn't just print money at a whim, the Iraq War wouldn't have happened. which would have meant, I think it was like a 500,000 people from the Middle East that died, I think into the tens of thousands of Americans that died, and not to mention the cost, right? Not to mention the cost and the amount of taxpayer money that was wasted on that. It still is being wasted to some degree, right? So are you saying that, a little bit of electricity is saving a little bit in electricity is worth it, but we're fine sacrificing 1 million lives? Like, it's just absolute madness. Not to mention too, these same people complain about poverty and the gap between the rich and the poor and all that garbage, but yet they're supporting a system to where um, your money is constantly being devalued, right? Like, would you not want people to be paid in a form of money that not only is it not being inflated, but it's actually being deflated? You're actually gaining purchasing power. Why would you not want that? Doesn't make any sense. And like I brought up too in the past video too, it's just proof that if the socialists actually believed what they're claiming to believe, they would be fans of Bitcoin or something comparable to Bitcoin. Like, if you actually care about the poor, you should be railing against the fiat money system. If you're not doing that, then you don't care about the poor. You're just pretending. You're virtue signaling. And like I brought up too the past video too, is the prominent YouTuber who was going off clearly doesn't know what they're talking about, because if they did, they would be bringing that, they would recognize this stuff. They would recognize this stuff, right? Um, so yeah, um, the government's not going to ban it. I think what their approach will be is just regulating it. But like I said, if they regulate it too much, it's going to have a Streisand effect. So they can't regulate it too much. I mean, some will, absolutely. I'm not saying they won't, but as far as the United States goes, I don't see them doing it. Canada, maybe. I think Canada's solution will probably just to be to tax it more. I don't think they'll ban it, because I don't even think they're that dumb. Our solution seems to be we're just going to tax everything more and more and more until we can't anymore. But they're not going to ban it, because you can't ban it. They can ban the off ramps. They can go to the on and off ramps. They can go to the banks and say, don't allow people to transfer money to any crypto exchange or from any crypto exchange. They could do that, but that doesn't prevent people. There's already a massive supply in existence, so you're not going to cut off the flow, right? Um, so anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms. If you want to donate, you can do that as well. Again, I would very much appreciate whatever support I can get. But like I said, at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe and stay tuned for more.